If you kept up with my last Integra video, I talked a little bit about how the gauge cluster was broken when I got it. Today I'm going to show you how to fix it, what you'll need, and how much it's going to cost. If you didn't know, my name is Liam, and today we're swapping in nothing other than one of the most iconic gauge clusters ever designed. Can you guess what it is? It's from an S2000. Before we get into this video, I just want to give a special shout out to the Ropes Design out in California. They help provide some of the parts I'm about to show you guys, and without them, I would not have been able to make this project possible. If you have a Honda, be sure to check them out. I'll list their website in the description below. They provide quality aftermarket parts for Honda platforms, and they make projects like this look easy and beautiful. So now that I'm out of the heat, as many of you guys already know, when I got my Integra, one of the big things that was wrong with it was the gauge cluster. It kind of worked except for the speedo and the tachometer, which are basically the two most essential things you should be knowing. And I broke it down to the gauge cluster itself being the issue. Now if I wanted, I could have saved some money and ordered a new GSR cluster on eBay, but I already tried that. And the one I got in the mail was broken. So I did some research and found out that people have been swapping these S2000 gauge clusters and Integras since I was in diapers. And I had to give it a shot. I personally am a really big fan of the S2000 gauge cluster with its really future classic kind of looking design and being inspired by some of Honda's Formula One cars of the time. I just thought it'd be really fitting for my car. Because I mean, essentially it's a front wheel drive S2000, give or take. And I just feel like it'll really spruce up the interior. So let's get to it. Here's what you're gonna need. An S2000 cluster, an instrument cluster bezel, mounting brackets, a converter chip, and a wiring harness conversion. The total cost does get a little pricey, and S2000 clusters are only going up in value. So if you are considering doing this project, I definitely recommend doing it now or as soon as possible. Alright, so now we're in the car. We're actually going to get to uninstalling the original gauge cluster and putting in the S2000 one. It's pretty easy. All you're going to need is a small Phillips head screwdriver like this. And it's just a couple screws and some wiring and you're basically done. So to start off, there's going to be two screws right here, one up top inside here and one up top inside here. It's also very helpful to get under the steering wheel and get it to the lowest setting. So you're going to be able to pull this bezel out and get to all the bolts a lot easier. So to pull the bezel out, it's a little funky. You don't want to break anything. What I like to do is I like to start with the top part and kind of pull down. Don't be too scared. Pop it out of its place like that. You'll see these two little bumpy things here are kind of keeping it in. And then with this bottom part, you'll see there's two clips and you kind of just squeeze and slide it out. It might be pretty hard the first couple times. As you can see, it's going to be this little thing right here. Little clip will go onto this guy right here. It can be pretty easy to break it, so you do want to be gentle, but at the same time, you have to put a little bit of force into it. Just make sure when you're pulling it out as straight as possible, so you don't risk breaking or bending the clips. So now that we have the cluster exposed, there's going to be one screw right up here for the Phillips, and then two on each side. Try to zoom in. I have the screw taken out, but it's going to be that little hole right here, and then that little hole right there, just behind it. Be really careful when taking these out because there's a lot of room for the bolt or screw to get lost somewhere inside your interior. It's always good when you're doing little things like this to have extra interior screws. You can buy a set on Amazon, and if you ever lose or bust anything, it's an easy replacement for most of your interior parts, especially for these Hondas. So now that you have everything undone, you're just going to pull the gauge cluster out. I like to bend it down a little bit. And then the wiring is going to be attached. For my situation, it's not because I just did this earlier. You'll not have much room, so you're just gonna bend it here. And there should be 3 plugs. One for the airbag sensor right here. One small harness plug right here. And a bigger one over here. So you're just going to carefully take this thing out. And there you go, you're ready to put all the S2000 stuff in. So we're going to start with installing the S2000 mounting brackets. They're going to make the S2000 cluster fit a lot nicer. You can get away with not doing this, but you're also risking getting a rattly interior. Special thanks to the Ropes Design again for providing me these parts. 3D printed, really good quality, and he also gave me the instrument cluster bezel in dry carbon fiber, which I'll show you guys soon. But yeah, let's get these in. Came with some hardware, so it should be pretty easy. Now that we got our mounting brackets on, we're going to go on to installing the carbon fiber bezel. Like I said before, this is from Ropes Design. He has a bunch of different options, matte black, dry carbon like this, and gold carbon. If you're interested in getting this, it definitely makes the look of this cluster awesome. I highly recommend it. What you're going to do to install it is you're basically going to lay it over the cluster like so, and then there's 2 holes near the top of the cluster that have 2 Phillips head screws. If you got the cluster online, or if you're sourcing it from an S2000, make sure these screws are included. It's pretty hard to find similar ones unless you, like I said before, get a Phillips head screw kit on Amazon or something like that, and it's just a pain. So now we're going to go on to installing the wiring harness conversion. I got this from wireworks.com. I'll put a link to it in the description below. When you choose them, make sure you specify the cluster you're going to get, and you can also get a K-tune converter chip. This is really important if you want to be able to see your fuel level or your cooling temperature, and cruise control and other things like that. So it's definitely worth spending the extra money, especially if you're swapping this cluster into your daily. I highly recommend it. And before you plug this into the back of your cluster, make sure the chip gets plugged into this wire right here. See on the back of the chip here, there's a little screw. That is for adjusting your initial fuel level when you install it. It's going to be a little bit off. You also can plug this into your computer with a supported USB wire, and you can kind of tune in how you want your coolant temperature to be set in regards to the levels on the cluster and the fuel as well if it gets a little wonky. So now we're going to take the wiring conversion harness and plug it into the back of the cluster. Basically just color match them. The green one right here, whites, and these 2 guys right here. That clicking is really satisfying. And now that you got everything plugged in, we're going to connect it to the OEM harness. And that's going to go to these 3D printed sockets right here. The conversion harness does make it a little bit easier to do this because it's a little bit more extended. And also, don't forget to plug in your airbag wire. So now we got everything plugged in. Let's get the mounting brackets screwed into the car and throw on the final piece. So now that we got it all mounted in, from each one of those 2 mounting points I was showing you guys before on the left and right, be very, very careful with when you screw it in. Don't want to lose that screw, and also you don't want to break your bezel. If you want, now that I'm looking at the room again, you could probably just install this thing after you mount the cluster. Be a lot easier. But anyways, last step is going to be getting this bad boy in. So steering wheel, keep it low. Take this piece right here, put it over, slide her in, press down a little bit, and then this top part you're going to bend it down and in, and then push down and slide, and bada boom bada bang. That's just about it. Now I just got to put these 2 screws in. Alright, so it's officially in the car, and take a look at this. So clean. I'm not one for carbon fiber usually, but this is a beaut. Let's start it up. Ooh. That's an S2000 cluster and an Integra. The mileage is a little different, so I recommend you mark the mileage on your old cluster, maybe with a Sharpie on the back, and the mileage of the S2000 cluster when you get it. So if it's important to someone else, you can add up the mileage for them. This is what I really think the Integra should have came with. If Acura decided to do this cluster from factory, I don't think anyone would have complained. If you're thinking of doing this, I highly recommend it. Just look how awesome that thing looks. It definitely brightens up the interior of the car a little bit and makes it a little more modern, which I love. Some are gonna hate about the 9,000 RPM when I can only go to 8, but it's cool. I like it. I don't care. I know I was looking online, there's this company called, I think, Aesthetics that will actually customize these, and I can make it like a purple vaporwave light or something like that, which I am really interested in checking out maybe in the future. Gotta save up a little bit more money. Got some other things on the car to take care of before I do that, but it is definitely on my list. If you guys look, the coolant is pretty accurate. My fuel though is not. It is halfway full, it says. So I showed you that little K-tune converter with the screw on the back of it. I read in the manual that you get a little screwdriver and you turn that, and that'll adjust the fuel and kind of calibrate it to your fuel tank. So hopefully that'll fix the issue. If not, just drop a little thing in the comment section below. I'll try to figure it out. If you guys want, I will do a part 2 video on this about how to calibrate the coolant and the fuel if you're interested. I'm gonna tool around with a little bit and kind of get familiar with it before I start making content on it. But yeah, just let me know. I'd love to help you all out if you're interested. I think if you have a DC2 Integra or like a Honda Civic and you have the ability to swap it in S2000 Cluster, I highly recommend it. This is like the coolest thing in the world. I don't know how to explain it. It's just one of those things where like you modify your car and it's just something you see all the time, and it looks good too. Like that just looks like it's supposed to be there. It's clean. It's mint. It's mint. The only thing that I'm a little sussed about is that it starts in kilometers every time I start it up, and I just kind of have to switch it to miles per hour. Not sure if this is like a European cluster or something, but you can change it up anyway, so I'm not really complaining too much. So now that we got the gauge cluster in, it is I think time to test it out. I waited a little bit so it's kind of darker outside, and the cluster is gonna look real nice. Gonna take it for a quick drive in the road. The fuel's a little off, and I think the coolant's pretty accurate, but just gonna make sure again like everything's working fine and everything's plugged in, it's mounted correctly, nothing's rattling or shaking, and to show you guys how sweet this thing looks in the Integra. Yeah, check that out. Let's take it for a test drive. It looks sick, right? Yeah. Christian's a little scared.
You gotta pay attention to the road.
Here.
All right.
Integra noises. It's not as fast as the M3, but it's still a pretty fun car. I'm gonna definitely do a review on this thing soon.
Yeah. It's really good at night.
Really good.
True.
Thank you guys so much for watching and following along. I hope this helps you with the install, or if you're deciding on doing the install. In the end, it's really easy. Any beginner could do this if you're getting into working on cars or doing cool little mods to your Integra or Honda. Highly recommend it. I'll list a couple links in the description below for all the parts and where I got them. And again, a very special shout out to the Ropes Design. I'll put his Instagram and his website in the description below as well. He really did help me out with this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. New videos hopefully every Monday. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Let's go.
Let's go.